Shalom and welcome to 2 Minutes of Torah. This year is entitled Transmigration of Souls, Part 3 in conclusion. So we discussed a lot in the first two shiurim. Went through the history of transmigration of souls, Gilgulim. We saw that in terms of the 24 books of Tanakh, not to be found in an explicit way. All of Shas, not to be found in an explicit way. The Gaonim also. Rav Sadigon says he heard people believe it. He said, I don't understand how Jews could believe in such a nonsensical idea. The Rishonim, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1400s, it begins to appear a little bit more. Ramban has it a couple of times, or Kanani and Rabbeinu Bachaya. And then 1500s and on, takes over Klal Yisrael, where you're going to hardly find a rabbi that doesn't subscribe to the belief in Gilgulim, where a person will live, will die, his soul will come back in another form, and in some extreme forms possibly. Could be another person, could be animal, plant, very extreme possibilities. So what do we do with all this? So it might sound pretty confusing. 3,300 years of a complex Masorah regarding Gilgulim. From not mentioned early years, rejected in the 800s, by the Sadigon, 900s, not really mentioned again, a few hundred years, and then embraced. So what do we do? Sounds so confusing. So one might say, well, listen, we go by the psak of this generation. The psak is everyone holds by it, just about. The rove majority for sure. However, the Rambam mentioned several times in his Perush Mishnayot that there's no real psak on purely philosophical matters. Meaning, how will the Messianic times evolve? Will the animals live together peacefully? They won't live peacefully. There's going to be Gog and Magog. How will Gog and Magog work? He says, Lo Yadim, in his last chapter in Hechel Malachim, we don't know. We will know when it occurs, when it appears. That's not a psak of what will happen in Messianic era. There will be Messianic era, that we all hold by. But the details not. So it says, in general, philosophical debates. There's no psak. And whatever you hold, and we'll see what happens. You'll say, but what does that mean? There's no philosophical ideas you need to hold by. It's only halacha, follow this halacha, follow that halacha. So there, in general, the klal has embraced the 13 principles of faith. The Yigim Likarim, every morning in the city we have Yigdal, which is a song full of the 13 principles of faith. After the davening, Ani Mamins. So I think it's fair to say that most of Klal Yisrael has embraced 13 principles of faith. I say most, because if you read the literature over the generations, Rambam organized 13 principles of faith. The Ikarim, a few centuries later, argued with the 3 principles of faith. Here, Bar Brunel has what to say about it. Chassam Sofer has what to say. Rav Hirsch has what to say. I wouldn't say everyone agrees with Mark Shapiro and his famous essay in Torah Mother Journal 20 plus years ago. And his subsequent book discusses all the sources about what rabbis have to say about the Rambam's 13 principles of faith. But be that as it may, let's assume for now, 13 principles of faith, that's been accepted more or less by Klal Yisrael as a sign of Orthodox Judaism. And outside of that, there's no principle of faith. So therefore, a person says, I don't really embrace this Gilgul concept. I'm not sure I'm convinced of it at all. If not, I even lean towards Mosadigon and more what Rambam probably holds on it. Okay. Another person says, I don't know, 500 years of literature, the Arizal. Once the Arizal comes in, that sways everything for me. Because I think he got this from God and this and that, and Nevuah or Kodesh, who knows what. Okay, fine. Personally, I don't have any leaning in this topic. I see the history of Gilgul. Doesn't seem to be one of the principles of faith. I know the majority of rabbis and laymen have embraced it the last few hundred years. And me. If I'm around in Tchias HaMesim and I see people come back and it is clear that they came back after being through Gilgulim, it's just black and white clear, or a Navi comes and says, yes, this person is a Gilgul, this is the final body after he's gone to the Sovereign. I'll say, okay, good. I never knew how we would conclude it in this topic of Gilgul. Now I know. Well, it is a Gilgul. Or in Tchiyat HaMeitim, when a prophecy comes along and it's clear there was never such a concept of Gilgul, okay, guys, open to that too. I'm open either way. I don't have any leaning. It doesn't have a lot halacha l'maisa practically to do with my life day to day. It's an interesting philosophical debate, and it is used by some to explain why bad things happen to good people. Those who embrace this concept think that that's an explanation. Those who reject this concept don't use it as an explanation. I don't have an attachment one way or another. And those who are convinced, yes, fine. Convinced, not, fine.